Hello, and thank you for joining us once again on Classic Vinyl Podcast and our Meet The Beatles series. This is the podcast where we listen to and review songs and albums from the classic vinyl era of the 60s and 70s. And every few episodes or so, we do an episode on the Beatles to get you guys just to meet the Beatles a little bit, introduction to a little bit of their music. We're trying this conversion therapy on my co-host Tyler. I am one of your hosts, Justin, like always, and once again, we're in the basement studio. How are you doing, Tyler?
I'm converting.
So today we're on to the We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper double A-side single, but of course, no introduction to the Beatles. They're my favorite band. The boys from Liverpool, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. Most influential band of all time, the best band of all time, in my opinion, and I would say a lot of people's opinions, and the band I'm trying to get Tyler more and more indoctrinated to here in the basement.
I'm recognizing their sounds.
Well, and you really don't have a choice. I threaten you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I want to come play with your toys in your basement, then yeah.
Yeah, you've got to listen to the Beatles.
Exactly.
The rules of the house, man.
Mm-hmm. You got a lot of cool toys.
Yeah. So do you want to get on to the song review?
Yeah, let's do it.
And now it's time for the song review.
So today we're doing the double A-side single of the Beatles, We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper. Now let's talk about We Can Work It Out first. This is a song written by Lennon and McCartney, like most of the Beatles songs, but it's mostly a McCartney song. Lennon did write the bridge section, the section that starts out, "Life is very short and there's no time." Of course, this one's sang by Paul. You've got it double vocaled like the band was well known for doing. Until they had the recording capability to kind of double up their vocals, they doubled everything early on. So it was a double A-side single with Day Tripper on the other side. So Day Tripper was actually supposed to be the band's last single of 1965, but both Brian Epstein and the group thought that this song, We Can Work It Out, was more commercial and it would do really well. Now, Lennon did not like this. He liked Day Tripper better. And funny enough, I agree with Lennon on this one. That's my opinion. But that pretty much led to this being the world, obviously the band, and the world's first double A-sided single, which I never understood why there needed to be an A and a B-side anyways. I mean, if you release two good songs, let them choose which one they want to play. What's the difference of whether you say it's an A and B or a double A? It's kind of confusing, but the world was a different place.
Had marijuana been illegalized by then?
It was illegal by then, yes.
Okay, so it wasn't that different. It was a very different world anyway.
Very different, yeah.
Men wore hats.
I wish we still did a little more.
I think so.
Well, you are wearing a hat.
I am wearing a hat because I'm freaking bald.
Well, I'm going bald too, and I'm not wearing a hat.
Yeah, you're not going as bald as I am. I mean, you've got something to keep you warm in the winter.
Barely.
I have
Barely.
to put some sort of animal fur on me.
So the single itself was released on December 3rd of 1965 in the UK. That's actually the same day that the album Rubber Soul was released, which we'll be getting to that here shortly. And it wasn't released for a few more days in the US, December 6th. I guess Postal Mail took it a while to get the single there or something. They did record this during both of these songs during the sessions for the Rubber Soul album. It was recorded at EMI Studios, obviously known as Abbey Road Studios now, and produced by George Martin. This song was recorded over 2 days in a total of 11 hours. And the funny thing about this song, that marks the longest time the band had spent on a single song up until that point. Now, as we go forward into their other albums, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's, the studio becomes more prominent and they spend a lot more time than that on individual songs. But up until this point, they had spent the most time on this song. And the Beatles also did something known as promo films. And what do we know promo films in our world as nowadays? Music videos.
Mm-hmm.
But they did 3 different promo films for this song at the time. One where the band was wearing black suits. That's probably one of the more familiar ones if you reach out to YouTube for that. One of them is them in their Shea Stadium gear, those kind of tan suits. And then they have another one where they're in their black suits, but it opens up with Lennon with a sunflower over his eye. That was something else they were kind of innovative in. And, instead of hitting all the shows, let's go to the different shows that are on TV. Well, instead of doing that, let's make a promo film and send it out for us.
Wow.
And I mean, it makes sense. It really does. I mean, especially all the demand on the band at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So this song reached number 1 in the US, number 1 in UK, and number 1 in Canada. So pretty much number 1 across the world. So as far as what I said earlier about Lennon having a problem with this being the A side and Day Trip or not, I disagree with that. But at the same time, the band was right because this song was a bigger hit than Day Tripper.
Yeah.
And it is more commercial, so I can agree with that. This was the Beatles' 9th consecutive number 1 single in the UK. So 9 songs in a row they'd hit number 1 with.
Sure, at this time, they probably didn't need to pay the bills, per se.
Well, if you look at the taxation, the things that were going on, they were obviously wealthy men, but it wasn't to the extreme that it is nowadays and what it would become later. But
I get that Day Tripper is like John Lennon's art and what his passion project, but We Can Work It Out is very much the moneymaker. It's going to get more playtime, I think.
yeah, I can see that. But at the same time, the Beatles were doing so many different things. It just seemed like anybody would eat up anything they released.
Yeah.
And you know, it didn't hurt that it was good music too. That's the thing about it is there's a lot of that going on in the world where people just do things to be popular. And the Beatles were certainly that. I think people liked it because they were the Beatles. But the one thing that's different with them, in my opinion, and I think that's kind of expressed now 60 plus years later, is that it was good too.
Yeah.
And so some of the people hopped on that bandwagon, but that bandwagon was at that time the right one to be on, I think. Like I said, this was the 9th consecutive number 1 single for them in the UK. It is still the 7th highest selling single of the 1960s of any band in the world. And the single certified gold in the US, with the single selling over 1 million copies alone. It can also be found on Past Masters and the compilation they released One. Of course, that's a collection of their number 1 hits. Now, this song was, I think if anybody knows the history, but it was about Paul McCartney's relationship with his then girlfriend, Jane Asher, and a disagreement they had at the time and things that were just going on there. And then it's got John's little counterpoint when I was talking about that part where life is very short. They have this excellent way of doing Paul McCartney kind of happy and Lennon saying, oh, wait, maybe it's not so happy. You know, life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. So you can take that negative or maybe you can take that as a positive statement, but the music and that lyric kind of counterbalance out Paul McCartney's music and lyric in this. And this song has been covered by a lot of artists. I mean, like all Beatles songs, but most famously Stevie Wonder, Deep Purple, Humble Pie, Tesla, many, many others. So, Tyler, I know you know this song. And before we started doing the Beatles series, we had actually done an episode on We Can Work It Out. Not Day Tripper, but just We Can Work It Out.
Yeah.
And we had to kind of go through and do it again because we're doing them in chronological order. But so I know you'd listened to it a couple times before, and then we listened to it a couple times today. We listened to the original and we listened to the new 2023 remix just to kind of hear the differences there. But after listening to We Can Work It Out, what are your thoughts on this song?
So I have listened to this song very extensively, but it's fun to listen to this song with that ear for critiquing because it does paint it in a different perspective. And I really like this song. The more I listen to this song, the more I really dig into it, the more I really, really like this song. And that will be reflected in the rating. But yeah, it's beautiful. I like that it jumps right in with the lyrics. With I'm assuming this is Paul McCartney singing.
It is.
Okay. See, once again, I'm getting so converted. I recognize the different Beatles by their voices, except for.
And I don't understand the people that don't because they're so discernibly different. But I mean, that comes from somebody that listens to him daily. So
Yeah,
I guess it kind of seems strange to me. Like, how can you not tell? And me and my wife can be riding in the car and I'll be like, which Beatle is it? And she'll be like, John. I'm like, no, guess again. Paul. No, why don't you guess one more time? George? Yeah, there you go. You can always usually tell Ringo.
yeah. If you're gonna mix the Beatles up, it's gonna be those three.
Yeah,
Ringo is Ringo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard Paul McCartney's got such a versatile voice though, so I've heard him sing like just about every single one of the other Beatles, and at some point or another, and so he's gonna fool me. Yeah, this song It's upbeat. It's optimistic. It's about a guy who's having a disagreement with his girlfriend. And he's just trying to say, look, that you can either be a brat about this and, face the possibility of being proven wrong in time and then having to eat your humble pie later, or you can try to see things my way from my perspective. And, that I think it's a really important bit of advice that he's trying to give to the listener is that we can work it out. Try to see things from my point of view. I'll try to see things from your point of view. If you're ever getting into too heated of an argument, then you don't have to ruin your relationship over it. If you're tired and you're just picking at each other for the sake of, your hurt egos, go to bed, wake up and rehash it when you're feeling fresh and rested. And that's okay. And then John Lennon pipes in with, hey, life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. And there's something to be said for that too. That, yeah, I think they're not giving opposing arguments. I think they're just giving more and more validation for it. The same thing that, hey, we can work it out. We just gotta be patient with each other and, express your point of view. I'll express my point of view. I'll try to see things from your perspective. You try to see things from mine. And that's how we come to work it out. All of this backed up by some really upbeat music, and it's fun. So I look at this like, oh, this is a little lesson in relationship counseling. And it's all just set to music, really good music. So I rate this one pretty high. But what are your feelings about this song, Justin?
Well, it's the Beatles, and I'm, undoubtedly a Beatles apologist to a certain extent. There's songs I will call out that I really dislike, but this is what I grew up on, right? Yeah. And so that's why when we do the ratings, I rate the Beatles based on the Beatles music, not on other music. But this is a good song. Like you said, it kicks right into the singing. This is disputed too, and I've read through multiple sources that George is on the tambourine and John is on acoustic guitar, Paul's obviously on vocal and bass, and Ringo on the drums. And what's disputed is that people think that Ringo played the tambourine and George also played an acoustic guitar. I don't really know, but I know those are all on there. So there's reliable sources out there. Who knows? But
if that's George on the tambourine, I say, hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. He really does a good job.
Yeah, they do well with that on it. And it fits perfect in this song because it's not overused, but it's a perfect backing instrument.
Exactly.
So my favorite part of this song is John Lennon's portion. The life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. Like a lot of songs, supposedly that was actually a song John was working on and he just put it into this. I don't know if he just had that lyric, as a chorus for it or whatever. Would have been interesting to see if there was a song they were working on the time that was what it come from, or if all he had was that one lyric. I don't know, but it's kind of that yin and yang you get between them, the sweet and sour, that because even though they're kind of describing the same thing in a way, the music is so upbeat in the Paul sections and then it takes kind of that down trodden minor chord feeling during the Lennon section, and this is kind of the start of that to me with the band is when we start getting into the Rubber Soul recordings and they're a little darker and not so much lovey-dovey. Now that is the case with Paul most of the time, but Lennon's vocals are starting to get darker. I don't know if it's the drugs, the times, what's going on, but it's just a perfect pairing. The harmony that Lennon and McCartney have on this is great. Lennon's strained vocal that comes in. I love when his vocals are strained. They just work out perfect. And one thing I can say about the 2023 remix, which is like a lot of these things we see, is it's a more airy, open mix. And there's more emphasis on the bass and the drums. And I don't know if that's to kind of more cater to the kids nowadays that like the heavier bass and things just to propel this music forward. It's nice to have it. I'm not one of those that say, okay, I don't like this mix. I don't like you messing with that, because they're all there. If you want the originals, go listen to the originals.
Yeah.
If you want some differences, listen to them. And it's kind of interesting to see what they can bring out of the mixes, in my opinion. But yeah, a good song.
Excellent.
So that brings us to Day Tripper. Now, this is a song written by Lennon McCartney, but it's mainly a Lennon composition, and it's got a lead vocal by both Lennon and McCartney on this. They share the duties on this one, and of course, they're doubled over again. This was also recorded during the sessions for the Rubber Soul album. It was recorded at EMI Studios, Abbey Road, produced by George Martin. The same thing as We Can Work It Out. Recorded in 3 takes in October of 1965. It was recorded in the same session when the band started recording Harrison's song, If I Needed Someone, which, if you know that song, it's from Rubber Soul. So this can also be found on Past Masters in the compilation 1. And the Beatles, basically John Lennon and George Harrison to start, were just starting to experiment with LSD at this time. The song is a straight-out reference to the drug-based counterculture of the 1960s. Day tripper, that's basically a slang term for someone who failed to fully embrace the hippie lifestyle, like a weekend-style hippie. Someone, because to be a hippie, you had to live the life, man, right? You were a full-time hippie. But those guys that just got stoned and tripped out of their minds on the weekends, they're just day trippers. They don't know the real deal. And I don't know if Lennon's referring to himself as a day tripper, or the Beatles as a day tripper, as a negative thing, as a positive thing. I really don't know. But a Sunday driver, another reference in this song, is the same type of thing. You're not the full-on thing. You're just the Sunday driver. You're just the fill-in. You're just the part-time. And another thing about this lyric, she's a big teaser. The Beatles had talked about, and this is well known in a lot of books, that was supposed to be she's a prick teaser. So that was supposed to be kind of dirty. And I don't know if they really ever seriously considered recording it like that. I don't think that would have been a big hit for the Beatles, if you know what I mean. Even though people were jumping on the bandwagon, I think that probably would have been a step too far.
But that does sound a lot like what I was saying before, John Lennon's art coming out.
Yeah. And this is the time, with the marijuana use that had kicked up, with the LSD use that has started. I mean, everything's changing, not just the Beatles, but the whole world around them. And they're the catalyst for a lot of it, but they're also soaking a lot of that change in themselves. So this is really when you start, to me, this is kind of the ultimate time when everything changes. And like We Can Work It Out, the Beatles also made 3 promo films for Day Tripper in November 1965 at Twickenham Film Studios in London. And the first film, they were in the Shea Stadium suits like the other one. George Harrison and Ringo Starr stood behind a railway carriage prop. Starr brought out a saw and began dismantling the set. Lennon and Paul McCartney were positioned behind a nearby 1920s-style airplane. So it's kind of interesting, but there was 3 different films for this one the same way. I guess they just wanted to make some different ones to send it out. So this song didn't hit as well as We Can Work It Out. It reached number 5 in the U.S., but it did hit number 1 in the U.K. and Canada, so it did just as well there. So I guess that's just saying the Americans are into more sappy songs, more commercial songs.
We're the squares that haven't quite caught up with them yet.
Well, and I think England at the time was more progressive into that stuff than what the U.S. was, but things were changing, there's no doubt. So this is a song that was part of their live set until they quit touring in August of 1966 at their very last concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. So it's a song they played quite frequently live. It's been covered by a number of people as well. A couple that I seen was like Otis Redding, Jose Feliciano. There was a bunch of others, but this one's been covered a lot as well. I know you probably know this song, but what is your history with this song and what do you think of it?
This song is one that I have to be reminded of what song Day Tripper is. But
what do you mean by that?
Just because the way that John Lennon sings it, it could be daydreamer. It's not the sort of word or not the sort of term that I hear very frequently, but it sounds very British.
There's a guy I used to work with that when this would come on the radio, he would always sing gay stripper.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that would have made a Weird Al song or not, but
there's a lot. I'll tell you something. Weird Al has plenty of material to go off of.
He certainly does. If he can get the rights to do it, yes.
For sure.
And I think Lennon would have allowed him to do it.
Oh, yeah. That was right about Lennon's alley.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. And that's one thing about this song in particular is like we start getting into this era of the Beatles where they're starting to push the boundaries and look outside of the box for new sounds and new ideas. So yeah, these ideas, this song, it could be a little dirty. Maybe it is a little dirty. Maybe it's supposed to be like the whole hippie lifestyle. It's supposed to be 24/7, but well, somebody's got to pay the bills. So maybe this guy just works a 9 to 5 in the city, and on the weekends, he goes down to the hippie commune, does some drugs, and hooks up with a couple of girls who take him halfway there and then leave him wanting. And so there's a lot of themes to this that are a little harsher towards polite society or against polite society per se. But even so, this song, it's catchy. This is one of these songs where I think that tons of people probably have heard it on the radio and had no idea what its meanings were or what he was even saying.
That's kind of the way I take this song is when it come out. There's probably not a lot of people that put drug references to it. You know, it's not overtly. I mean, you'd have to kind of be in the know to really say, oh, yeah, that's a drug song.
Yeah. He's got a reason for taking the easy way out. Like that opening line, that really tells me that, okay, this guy's not committed to the hippie lifestyle. The easy way out is just go get a full-time job that pays the bills rather than be committed to living the hippie free lifestyle and wondering where your next meal's coming from. So that's, where I take a look at it and think, okay, this is somebody that's not really committed. And like the Sunday driver, that's another thing, is Sunday drivers, at least in the American sense of the term, is somebody that's not in a hurry to go anywhere and by that I mean they're not really committed to getting to where they're trying to go, right? They're just out for a ride. And so that's what I think that term probably correlates a lot better across the pond with England and what they would consider a Sunday driver to be. So this is somebody that's not in any hurry to be the hippie, but somebody that just dabbles in it. And yet that's what everybody's aspiring to be, man, as part of the hippie movement. Make a new world. What are your thoughts about Day Tripper, Justin?
I like Day Tripper. Obviously, listening to this when I was younger, I didn't put any drug reference to it. I mean, there's drug references, there's sexual references in this. I mean, it's kind of all about, and you don't know how much of it is just wordplay as well, because Lennon liked that. But it's got a very recognizable guitar intro. It's one of the early guitar tabs I learned to play. And after the standard strumming chords and stuff. And so it was one of the first ones I learned how to play, and I can kind of still play it today. I love the guitar intro. I love the guitar in the choruses. It's got a really excellent guitar solo by Harrison. Ringo plays the tambourine in this one, and I don't think there's any controversy in this one of who plays the tambourine, but it fits in perfect because just like We Can Work It Out, it's not overly used, but it fits in well in the background.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it in this one.
Yeah, it really does. It has really thick bass in it. Ringo's doing his thing like always on the drums. Probably the one thing I dislike about it's the fade out, but I don't know how else you would have done that. When we listened to the 2023 remix, just like on We Can Work It Out, the drums and bass are even thicker than in the original, which I don't know if I like or don't like. It's just good to have that different version of it. But even in the original, the bass and the drums really stand out. And for me, this song's pretty special because it shows, I don't know, I've always considered Day Tripper to be the turning point for the band, because that's like when they're going to be, I just got done saying the song's not overtly about drugs or sexuality, but it kind of is at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's not hidden very well. So it was a big turning point for the band, but it still kind of got the earlier sound too. So it's, they're in a transition area, and they're changing with the world as the world is changing with them. But excellent song. I've always liked it. So, yeah, good song. Do you want to get the song ratings?
Let's rate them.
Song rating.
Okay, listener, if this is your first episode, I will briefly explain our rating scale to you at 0 to 10, 10 being awesome. And let's see, so first up, we're going to do We Can Work It Out. And I do that one at a 9. I put that one way up there. Really like that song. Really like the instruments. Really like the message. Really like the lyrics. It's all beautiful. And where do you put that one, Justin?
I don't rate that one as high as you. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm rating it on a Beatles scale, so I'm comparing it to their other work. I enjoy the song, but out of all the Beatles songs, it's probably one that I don't enjoy hearing as much anymore. It just comes on too much for me. I like the message. I like Lennon's Life is Very Short portion. I rate that song a 7.5 on a Beatles scale. an excellent song. It's not like I skip it or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know what it is about it. I've always enjoyed it, just don't over enjoy it. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about Day Trip?
So Day Tripper, I put that one at a 7. It's a good song. I enjoy the music. I like the singing. The instruments are great. The performance is just spot on. It's not quite my cup of tea, and I guess I'm not as much of a hippie as I should be. I had a hard time trying to understand a lot of the slang.
Do you really need to understand it?
I do, because I'm a lyrics guy, and that's my great downfall. That's why it's a 7. Where do you put them, Justin?
Yeah, so, I mean, I listened to this song for years before I ever knew there was any drug references. It wouldn't even have crossed my mind, But this song, I rate an 8.5. I think it's an excellent song. I agree with Lennon. I think this should have been the A-side, but I guess it was A-side because it was a double A-side, so
Exactly.
They had to give in. But I just like this song better. It's probably because it's more guitar-driven. And, the lyrics are great and stuff like that, but they can have those hidden meanings. They're somewhat overt, I guess, but you can also not even think about it. And it's just a song, Day Tripper, it could be anything. You could fit that into anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be a drug song, in my opinion. So I just really like the guitar parts in it more than anything. And I like the vocals. Just an excellent song. And nothing wrong with We Can Work It Out either. It's a song I love as well. But if I rate them on these Beatles scales, we're getting closer to some of my favorite albums. Even though I love the early stuff, I have to be in more of a mood for some of that, which I am a lot of times. But we're getting into the stuff that I really fell in love with. And so going forward, I'll do a lot of crying. Oh, maybe that won't happen, but you know what I mean.
Hey, people might pay us more money if we cry.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the Beatles. We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let us know what you think about the songs, what you would rate them, or have any songs or albums you'd like us to rate, please send them to classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. And like always, we appreciate you taking your time to listen. It's a labor of love for us, and as long as the basement studio stays standing, we'll keep coming here.
Yep.
So until next time, see you later.
See ya. Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.